Hello everybody, Grey Wolf here, and welcome back to another video. Today I will be showcasing my Clawbringer Spellshot setup capable of soloing all content in the game, raid bosses, chaos chambers, and so on and so forth. But before we get into it, if you like the video, please consider subscribing, and turning on all notifications. And with that said, let's get right into it. Okay, I hope you guys like my little montage. Now let's get into my skill trees. And before I do, I want to point out a couple things. One, you will notice that there is no magic bullets anymore. Magic bullets was recently quote unquote balanced, aka they took away the capability for the stabomatic to benefit from its damage. The original idea for magic bullets was the actual bullet damage itself, and it had its own spot in the formula, and now it is just strictly gun damage. So the stabomatic does not benefit from it any longer. Also, the whole idea behind the Spellshot skill tree with this setup is to build up as much spell damage through your spell weaving stacks, and you get a couple little bonuses here and there with some fire rate, reload, spell cooldown, etc., etc. But the main focus is to build up as much spell weaving, which I believe will cap out at 8 or 11, and to get that extra spell damage to channel through the spell blade, which will channel through your paradigm, which will convert your spell damage into melee damage. That's why when you're running the stabomatic with the spell blade and the paradigm, it's such a huge bonus, because spell damage is converted into melee damage, and then you're getting bonuses from both aspects of it. Anyways, starting off in the Spellshot tree, tier 1 took 5 out of 5 for prestidigitation, or however the hell you say it. Basically, even though you're running the universal soldier, you're going to be reloading, so the added reload speed is a good benefit to your DPS output. Took 5 out of 5 in just warming up. Pretty self-explanatory. More spell weaving stacks, the more fire rate you get. 5 out of 5 in Fontamana. Again, pretty straightforward. Spell cooldown rate, action skill cooldown rate. You use both in this setup. Definitely want to get them back faster. The faster you get them back, the more damage you could do. 1 point in glass cannon. Pretty self-explanatory. As I said before, the more spell damage we build up, the more we can channel it into melee damage with our armor piece and with our melee weapon. So for 1 skill point invested in Glass Cannon, you get 30% added spell damage. 1 skill point into High Thread Count. This will boost our spellweaving stacks by 3, which will give us a total of 8. And if you have an armor piece that gives you another added bonus skill point into this, you will be able to buff your spellweaving stacks up to 11. As I mentioned before, that's kind of what I meant, whether you have 8 or 11 spellweaving stacks. Okay, so on to the Clawbringer skill tree. Starting out in tier 1 with Oath of Thunder, you will actually get the Oath of Thunder bonus while using the stabomatic. If you read in the text, the Fate Maker's melee damage is converted, or not converted, excuse me. You will get bonus lightning damage when you deal melee damage. Now, the way the text read is, and the thing you need to remember is, if you see something that says melee damage in the text, just like the Universal Soldier, as I stated before, you are actually going to receive that bonus while using the stabomatic. So you will get this bonus lightning damage, which is a total of 30%, which is actually pretty good for shield stripping and just a little added DPS. Took 5 out of 5 in Rebuke for the extra damage reduction, and you get a little bit of, basically they hit you and you give it back to them a little bit in lightning ability damage. I guess that's a simple way of putting it. But any type of damage reduction or help with the crazy damage scaling that the enemies have are going to benefit you. I mean, really just a little bit currently. 4 out of 5 in Dedication, because when you do actually have some ward, which will kind of be very few and far between, C50 is kind of crazy, and enemies be doing hella damage and everything. But when you do have some of your ward, you will get an added action skill cooldown rate bonus. And the other skills up here to move down in the tree are not really going to benefit you that much. So I kind of just dumped my 4 skill points that I'm going to need to move down into this guy right here. 5 out of 5 in Dragon Aura, which in my opinion, as per skill point spent, is one of the best skills in the entire game. Elemental damage is a crazy good bonus, gives you substantial DPS increases, and overall is just a badass skill. Okay, so I took Blasthamut's Favor, or however you say that confusing ass word, basically to get the fire orb that seeks out an enemy and deals fire ability damage or the lightning damage that it does. This synergizes pretty well with Awe, and we'll get down to Awe in a second and you will see exactly what I'm talking about. Took Firebolt, not because of the gun damage, because the stabomatic, which is going to be the weapon you use exclusively, does not benefit from it. I only took it again for the fire damage, little, I guess you can call it debuff or however you want to say it, that you get from this skill, but definitely not the gun damage. Okay, on to one of the more important skills of the whole build. Awe reads, after dealing fire damage, the Fate Maker gains increased critical hit damage for a short duration. After dealing lightning damage, you get increased critical hit chance for a short duration. Why do I bring this up? Well, I was just speaking to you guys previously about why I took Blasthamut's Favor and Firebolt and all that, and this is exactly why. Because they all play in to Awe. You will get more critical hit damage, more critical hit chance without you actually having to really do much work. The Wyvern will do it for you. Also, you will be using a certain spell that I will go over that will actually help you with the fire damage aspect to proc Awe even further. Indomitable. Such a strong word for such a meh kind of skill. Anyways, basically when you go in to save your soul, C50, more than likely you are going to go down at least once during the Chaos Chambers and or when you're mobbing and so on and so forth. So this will just give you a little bonus lightning damage every now and then. Pretty self-explanatory. Okay, now for the capstone in the Clawbringer skill tree, Storm Smite. Storm Smite has been buffed a bunch of times by Gearbox. It is a very good skill now. I happen to enjoy it quite a bit. Bunch of thunder and fire and a bunch of chaos raining down when you throw the hammer, just like Thor. I mean, need I say more? Now, this is going to be the action skill that I highly suggest you run the entire time playing this build. Why, you ask? Well, this is Storm Dragon's Judgment, the Thor hammer. This thing is going to be able to proc awe, like I was stating with the other skills, and also it has a recall button. Basically, you can throw the hammer out and return it after damaging opponents or whatever, or just throw it into the sky and return it to proc your enchantments, and your enchantments are a big deal in this game. Enchantments are highly integrated into the amount of damage that you will do. So that's the skill trees. Now let's go over the gear. Okie dokie. So starting out with my weapons, these will be the 3 primary weapons you will be using. The handbow to stack your spell weaving, and then the stabomatics to basically eliminate anything off of the map. Now, the stabomatics can benefit from melee damage and all damage, but not from gun damage sources and or shotgun sources. However, mag size, melee crit, and melee damage, like on your rings and so on and so forth, will actually help the stabomatic. Okay, so for the armor pieces, I am going to show you 3 recommendations. One is going to be the one on the top left, and that one is going to give you the +3 into awe, which will give you more critical hit damage, aka more burst damage and a little bit more consistency. The other 2, the ones that have bonuses into high thread count, will actually have a higher ceiling, aka you will be able to do a little bit more damage, but it's a little bit harder to maintain. Moving on to the amulets, you're going to want to run the Universal Soldier. Reason being is that this will be able to basically have you sustain quasi or faux infinite ammo pretty much the whole time when you're running the stabomatic. Now, you have to remember that it's going to refill your magazine, but it's going to take it out of your overall ammo capacity. So you'll notice that it'll start ticking down if you're not accurate. So definitely be accurate with your shots, or you're going to find yourself without any ammo at all in like a blink of an eye. All right, moving on to the rings now. I actually have grown to really enjoy the class ring, the one on the left. If you read the bottom text, while action skills cooling down, the effects are increased by 50%. Well, you're constantly going to be throwing your hammer, so this effect is going to be active almost the entire time. You could also run like something on the right with the thumb cuffs. I gotta learn how to speak these days. While in a dungeon, effects are increased by 33%, but the class ring I've found has been way more effective in slot. And if you notice at the bottom skills, there's definitely an emphasis on melee crit chance or melee crit damage. You're definitely going to want to look for something with those on it. All right, so for my wards, these are the 2 wards that I run almost the entire time. I will throw on a Cursed Wit for bossing every now and then, but the Bad Egg is very good for the added movement speed, the extra melee damage, the bonus dark magic damage while ward is depleted. As everybody well knows, on C50, your ward will be depleted at least half of the time, I would say. The Body Rune is very good for survivability, and it also gives you the bonus fire damage, which actually plays into awe and will help you proc that added critical hit damage, as well as restoring some of your maximum health as you slay all of your enemies. Now, pay close attention to the enchantments. Both of these enchantments are incredibly effective. The one on the right is the one that you're pretty much going to want to look for or get on your ward. On action skill start, increase damage dealt by 20%. Okay, last but certainly not least, the spells and your melee weapon. Now, starting off with the melee weapon in the bottom right. First off, the enchantment I chose is on action skill start. Again, action skill start, you're going to be using your hammer over and over, so this enchantment will be procced most of the time. Why did I choose spell damage? Well, spell damage will go straight into the spell blade, converting it into another source of melee damage. As for the spells, it's pretty self-explanatory. If people haven't figured out by now, the Buffmeister is best in slot. Reason being, if you look at the bottom prefix or whatever, the little ability thing on the bottom left-hand side of the top left Buffmeister, the fire one, in other words, Bonk. Bonk will boost your melee damage substantially. As for the other one, the other Buffmeister, the Cryo one, the Cryo one will scale off of spell damage as well. Need I explain where the synergy is at with that one? And this is the whole video. I hope everybody enjoyed it. This one was a little more long-winded than my typical ones, but I wanted to give you an in-depth reason why the stabomatic does so much damage if you didn't already know. Thank you guys for stopping by. And once again, if you liked the video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and all that lovely nonsense. Have a good one, everybody. Take care.